agenda item. I'd like to call for a motion and a second to reopen school under the hybrid schedule. I'm sorry. Do we have a date? Would somebody like to make a motion for a date or not? I would like, Ms. Bushy?
Wondering, Mr. Montoya, if the superintendent has a date in mind that would work in light of the fact that we're waiting for the translation of some of the documents. We might need to address some of the additional health questions and also the installation of filters everywhere. There's just a few things still hanging. I wondered if that's fair to put you on the spot, Dr. Scambray, in terms of what would work the best for everyone involved.
No problem, Ms. Bushy. In light of all the things you just mentioned, if I had to recommend two dates, it would be either option of October 26th or November 2nd.
Do we want to hear a motion for either of those dates?
Do you need a motion to get the discussion started?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I will make a motion for reopening with hybrid on October 26th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is Joanne.
Okay. Joanne Foley, Ms. Foley seconded the motion. And now with discussion. So the motion was to reopen schools on October 26th. And it was properly moved and seconded.
So I think one of the questions that I have is, because we have these hanging questions, how can we pick a date? And that might be a silly question and there might be a reason for it. Maybe somebody can explain it to me, but if we have hanging questions, why are we trying to identify a date? Because we don't know when those questions will be answered.
I totally understand. I'm sorry, Ms. Bushy?
I think that's a good concern, Mrs. Klatzker. You know, I think one of the things I'm hearing is parents need some elimination of the uncertainty. I think, I have a granddaughter in a school in Los Angeles, and her school, though they can't open in LA, they have been very good about giving dates to the parents, which I think has been very comforting to her parents. So I guess the reason for looking at a date from my perspective would be to give some certainty to the parents and to the teachers and others involved in the reopening. That would be my only reasoning for that. And unfortunately, this is outside of the end of the quarter. I don't know what the reason, but I would go with the recommendation of the superintendent.
Dr. Zhang, did you have your hand up?
I have the same concern about the dates. Is there a beginning of the quarter in November, Scott, Dr. Scambray?
No, the quarter ends, let's see, quarter ends on the 9th, and then the next quarter ends with Christmas break. Is there, with regards to the questions about reopening, is there something that we can, some of these fears that we can alleviate right now?
Well, Dr. Scambray, it seems, I'm sorry, Andy Montoya, it seems like there are some questions that people have in the community, and there's a very big push for students to go back to school.
Correct.
I personally go back to school on Tuesday. I go back to school on Monday, but with students this Tuesday coming up. But it is a block schedule, so I've had 2 weeks to wrap my head around it. So I appreciate the dates that are farther down the road. I think that people with mental health and with just wrapping their head around going back, because I think that teachers have been so focused on getting their lessons done, and they've been working harder than ever with the amount of work. I mean, I myself spent at least 10 hours on email this weekend and getting lessons ready. Just the way a mind shift, I think giving as much time as possible would be beneficial. But at the same time, I do think that we need to aim for a date. So I'm actually at this point, I would like to ask if we could move to the November 2nd date, and so that everybody has a date and we have enough time to get ready for that date. Dr. Zhang?
I like the November date. It allows us about a month to get some of the questions answered, and it allows us time for preparation. And that it sounds like it's a good time to start. My son has returned back to school 2 weeks ago. And on the first day of school, I asked him, are you excited about going back to school? And for a kid that hates to do his homework, that hates going to school, he actually said he's looking forward to going to school and that he couldn't be at home anymore. He was going crazy at home and he needed to get out and have interaction with other students. And so it's been 2 weeks now and he's happy again. He's doing his homework on his own without us asking him to. And he's back to the usual Christian before the quarantine. And so for me as a parent, that is very important. That being said, the school that he attends actually has all the protocols similar to what we have. And I asked Christian flat out, I said, are you wearing your mask? And he said, all the students are wearing their mask because everyone's concerned for their own safety and health. So, kids do understand that in order for them to go back to school to interact with other kids, they have to behave a lot more mature about their health and safety. So I think I'm for going back to school.
Ms. Foley?
I am also attracted to the November 2nd date. I seconded the motion so we could begin our discussion. Thinking about it, it has some benefits. First of all, if we start that day, it's 3 weeks and then it's Thanksgiving break. So, it will be stressful to return. It will be an adaptation. And then there's that break to look forward to. Also, that following week, so if we start on November 2nd, I was looking at my calendar, that Wednesday of the next week is Veterans Day. So it's literally a day off. So students and families and faculty and staff will have a breather about a week and a half in to just kind of say, okay, and I know people will still work. Pretty much everyone knows I'm also a high school teacher and a day off, so, but nonetheless, it is a day where there's just a little bit less of expectation, whether we do it to ourselves or whether it's outside. It's like an impossible decision. How do we land on what's best? There's so many variables and so many factors. And I do appreciate how hard people have been working to implement distance learning. And I appreciate how hard the students have been trying to keep up with distance learning. And, I'm also blurry-eyed. I'd love to see my students. And I agree that our students will be able to follow protocols. I think it is good to just maybe communicate very effectively and clearly on the issues that were raised so that people have a measure of comfort knowing that we do care about their safety, everyone's safety, and we are taking measures. That's the first thing. Our families entrust their most precious thing to us, their child. And so, of course, we do everything we can for them and for the people teaching them and interacting with them. So it's very difficult. I realize that November 2nd in some ways feels like kicking it down the road. And yet I think a date certain allows us to address these these hanging issues. I say little only because the comprehensiveness of the district and site-based plans allows time to figure out the lessons And then also because the timing of the calendar allows a little bit of built-in breathing room once we do go back.
Thank you, Ms. Foley. Dr. Jane?
Dr. Scambray, do we know the approximate percentage of students choosing for cohort C?
Probably 40%, Dr. Jane.
So approximately how many students in the classroom will we have if we were to return?
It varies. I have a document here. Depending, it goes from 6 to 15. I'm just looking at some now. 9, 5, 10, 10, 8, 15. So it varies across the district depending on the course and how many students signed up for cohort C at that point.
And if the students were to return to cohort A or B and become uncomfortable in in-person learning, can they choose to go back to cohort C?
Yes, and that's why we built the schedule like we did, so the kids can go back and forth.
Okay, thank you.
Because they're getting instruction from the teacher that they're in cohort C, they're getting instruction from the teacher that they would go to cohort A or B with.
So it's still a choice for them if they're not comfortable upon returning to go back to distance learning.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I'd like to call on Ms. Binding to see if she has any input on this.
Yes, thank you. So I would say I am in favor of the November 2nd date. I think that gives us a sufficient amount of time to answer some of these questions that we still have. And one question I had was, with us approving a potential date, are we also setting in stone the current schedule that we have that was proposed a couple months back? And if the schedule is subject to change, how far in advance would we notify teachers of that?
That's a great question, and I think that so much work was going into this schedule that's proposed. Dr. Scambray, do you have anything on that?
Yeah, there's no plans to change the schedule. That was negotiated between FSTO and the district. A lot of work and time went into that. So at this point, there's no plans to change.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Binding. Ms. Katzker, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was asking my 10-year-old to back away from the camera. I apologize. Since it's me, if it's okay if I just say something, I think that it's easier for me to get behind the November 2nd date. I think Mrs. Foley identified some good points in terms of why it might be better to wait that extra week before reopening. And I think that it provides teachers with some time to, like you were saying, Mr. Montoya, to wrap their heads around making that transition, and also the students to making that transition. It's not so easy for them to go between these different models of learning either. And I think that it gives everybody a chance to just hit the pause button, know what's coming, and be able to anticipate that.
From what I'm hearing, Ms. Bushy, would you take a friendly amendment to amend the motion to go to the November 2nd date?
I think that would be fine.
Okay. Can I also make another, I'm sorry, Ms. Foley, is that okay with you?
Yes, it is.
I would like also to make another amendment, if it's okay, that if we do go into the purple tier again, that we halt the decision to go back.
I don't think we have any choice, Andy.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah, we were only able to move to have students at school when we moved into the current tier
Okay.
of orange.
Okay, then I guess I don't have to make that amendment.
Well, Andy, I'm glad you brought it up though, because it's a little vague, and so that way we are really clear that if the community trends, rate per 100,000 and the positivity rate take a dramatic turn for the worse, then obviously we're not as in a safe as environment as we are now in terms of community spread. So I think it was very important to clarify that, and I'm glad that you did.
Thank you. Okay, so protocol, we have a motion on the floor and it's been amended. And the motion was to set a date of November 2nd for the back to school date. And it's been.
Mr. Montoya, could I just have somebody make a motion to amend the motion? And then I need a second, and then I need a roll call vote on the amended motion, and then you can make the new motion.
Okay, I motion to amend the original motion of October 26th to November 2nd date.
I need to call for a motion for that. Mhm.
You need a second, Andy, I think.
Who's making the motion, please?
Andy Montoya?
Okay.
Seconded it.
Okay, and then I need a roll call vote. This is for making an amendment to the motion. So what you're doing is you're amending the motion to say the school will open on November 2nd. So the motion's been made and seconded for the amendment. Mr. Montoya?
Aye.
Mrs. Bushi?
Aye.
Ms. Foley?
Aye.
Dr. Jang?
Aye.
And Ms.
Do we need to
Klasker?
do a preferential vote?
Please, Ms. Binding, do you approve the amendment?
I approve.
Thank you. And then now, so that was 5-0. Now I need to have a motion on the amended item. You just approved the amendment. Now we need to approve the motion. Mhm.
Ms. Bushi, would you like to make your motion?
I think,
You can make a motion to approve the amended motion. I'm reading, Robert. I've got it right here this time. You have to approve the amendment first and then the amended motion.
I move approval of the November 2nd date for opening.
There you go. And I need a second.
I'll
Second.
second.
Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, who was that? Joanne?
No, Dr. Jang.
Dr. Chang. Okay. And we're going to ask Ms. Binding if you approve the amended motion.
I approve.
Thank you. Now we'll take a roll call. Mr. Montoya,
Aye.
Mrs. Bushi,
Aye.
Ms. Foley,
Aye.
Dr. Jang,
Aye.
and Ms. Klasker.
Aye.
So the motion has passed, the amended motion has passed to reopen school under the hybrid schedule on November 2nd,